The Instagram Reels algorithm is an esoteric beast that I, at times, struggle to understand. When I head over to my Explore page, I get a screen of basically nothing but cute animals. And that makes sense because I love them, and I click on them, and I like them, and I share them. But when I click one of those videos and swipe, I almost never get another animal video. Instead, I get a song. And I'm a guy who likes a lot of music, but rarely is it ever a song that's in the wheelhouse of something that I would listen to. Instead, it's one of two things. About half the time, it's a musician putting himself out there who maybe is not all the way there. And unfortunately, they get shared and enter the algorithm because people think it's funny. This phenomenon of quote-unquote bad Instagram music is something that I've already covered in depth in a different video, which I can link in the description, and other people like Anthony Fantano have done a great job of talking about and exploring. The other half of the songs that I get, though, are usually a particular flavor of Brainrot-soaked parody music. It could be Hank Hill rapping Boss Man D-Lo.
Hey baby, I'm a boss man, keeping D-Lo.
It could be an ode to LeBron James in a few different mediums, from a beautiful 2000s R&B ballad to a cover of I Write Sins Not Tragedies.
Oh, he's LeBron James.
Or it could be from Jelly House, the man who may have single-handedly invented his own subgenre of Brainrot parody music. It's one thing to say that something in our time would kill a small Victorian child if you showed it to them, but a Jelly House reel is jarring and confusing enough that I think it could probably take out a 90s teenager loitering in a mall. The songs are recreations of hit songs, except with Brainrot vocabulary replacing literally every phrase. And it's not just me getting these videos because I'm a sick individual. His reels regularly get views in the high six figures, and a bunch of them crack into the millions. On the surface, these videos are good for a few clicks and shares and laughs, but I think there's more to it than that. We can use this to make a deeper observation about the purpose of parody music, how it's changed over the years, and what that evolution says about us as a society. So I'm gonna get into all that. But first, if you like videos on music like this one, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. I post a video every week. If you wanna see them early, go to my Instagram, HADJI, throw me a follow, and join my broadcast channel. I post all my videos in that broadcast channel one day early for free. Also wanted to say thanks to everyone who's checked out my group Elmjack's latest song, Get It How You Live. It's the best first week for a song that I've had, maybe in my entire life. And that's been amazing, so thank you guys for checking it out. If you haven't yet and you like the instrumental playing in the background, to give you an idea of what it sounds like, I'll put the link to it in the description. And last but not least, I, HADJI, am going on tour this summer with a bunch of other really great artists. If you live in the West Coast, the Midwest, or New York, there's a pretty good chance I'm coming to your city. All the tickets are in the description. Can't wait to see you there. Let's get back to the video. Like so many of the greatest things in the world, the word parody comes from Greece. In ancient times, a writer named HADJI of Thasos, I'm sure my ancestors are groaning in their graves at that pronunciation, was credited with the idea of taking other popular poems and slightly changing the words around a little bit to make the audience laugh. While his work has been lost to time, he's preserved by Aristotle, who referred to him as what he called the creator of parody. While today the word parody usually implies that something is trying to be funny, about 500 years ago in the Renaissance there was something called the parody mass, which was like a church service where they took secular or non-religious music and then flipped that music to make it something religious. But in the modern definition of parody, it adds an extra clause to include something about it needing to be funny, or at least, trying to be funny. Oxford defines it as an imitation of the style of a particular writer, artist, or genre with deliberate exaggeration for comic effect. We call it the modern definition, but there's also a history of some really old musicians doing something that fits in that too. Mozart has a piece from 1787 called A Musical Joke that some historians have interpreted as a satire of other musicians. To them, Mozart was playing weirdly on purpose to make fun of how some other musicians who weren't as good as him would sound. Jumping forward a few hundred years, we can now blame Mozart for the rapper Hobson's song No Words, where he sought to make fun of quote-unquote mumble rappers by making a bunch of mumbly noises on the beat, doing a parody where the joke is in the form more than the actual words. And some YouTube commenters ironically might tell Hobson that that is one of his best songs. Let's go back again a bit to the 1900s, where with the invention and commodification of recorded music, parody songs could be recorded and sold right next to the real ones. One of the earlier experts of the genre is Stan Freberg, who in the 1950s would record versions of popular songs and make them a little bit funnier. For example, he did Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel, but he turns up the echo effect more and more as the song goes on, and then rips his jeans in the middle of the song to make a joke about how Elvis would always wear tight pants. Freberg's version of a parody often included playing a pretty similar version to the original song, but then emphasizing some humor by breaking the fourth wall. For example, in what might be his most popular work, his version of Harry Belafonte's song Banana Boat, which maybe someone my age would know as the sample in Lil Wayne's song 6 Foot 7 Foot. The singer and the bongo player in the middle of the recording argue about the way each other is playing their roles on the song. The Barron Knights were a British rock band who were a slight evolution on this formula, impersonating specific bands and changing their lyrics around. One of their most famous songs, Call Up the Groups, saw them impersonate popular acts of the time like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, running through versions of those groups' songs one after another, but changing the lyrics to be about all the members of those bands getting drafted into the military. Here we see the popular parody song become more than just like an impersonation, but actually like changing the lyrics around for comedic effect. This is a big precursor for the next guy that we'll see. But there are also later examples of artists doing something like this. Why Don't You Get a Job, one of the biggest songs by the 90s punk band The Offspring, has almost the exact same melody and song structure as the Beatles' Obla Di Obla Da, to the point where it's like basically begging the audience to recognize how similar they are, except The Offspring's lyrics are funny and tongue-in-cheek, whereas the Beatles song was, more like a regular song. By far the most popular and successful example of a parody musician in the United States and maybe even worldwide is Weird Al Yankovic, who, along with Madonna and Michael Jackson, is one of only 3 artists to have a top 40 single in the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. What Michael Jackson is to the male pop star, sorry for not putting him in that video, and what Madonna is to the girl pop icon, Weird Al is to the parody artist. And he's got a formula. His structure for the parody song is to keep the music mostly the same, but change the lyrics to alter the meaning of the song into something totally different and often very ridiculous. Take Eat It, for example, which is a reimagination of Michael Jackson's song Beat It, where Michael Jackson said, just beat it, no one wants to be defeated, show them how funky and strong is your fight, it doesn't matter who's wrong or right. Weird Al says, just eat it, get yourself an egg and beat it, have some more chicken, have some more pie, it doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried. The song is on topic the whole time, it just so happens that the topic is very silly. Weird Al has a ton of classics under his belt. In my adolescence, the big hit was White and Nerdy, which was a parody of Chamillionaire's song Ridin' Dirty. And as a white boy at the age of 10 or 11 when that song came out, I can say I heard the two of them about equally. In fact, both songs landed on the Billboard's top 10, with the original Ridin' peaking at number 4 and White and Nerdy peaking at number 9, which is pretty crazy to think about for like a parody song. But between Eat It and White and Nerdy, there were so many other examples. Amish Paradise making fun of Coolio's Gangsta's Paradise, Fat instead of Michael Jackson's Bad, another one Rides the Bus instead of Queen's Another One Bites the Dust, and so on. These songs follow a similar formula. Take a popular song, swap a few words around to change the meaning, and profit. So the Weird Al format is what all the Gen Xers and earliest millennials grew up on. And earlier iterations of YouTube let the kids raised on Weird Al try their hand at it. There were so many song parodies on YouTube in the late 2000s and the early to mid 2010s. One of the most successful examples on there is Bart Baker, who today still has almost 10 million subscribers on his channel despite not posting a video in at least 3 years. Think of a hit song in the 2010s, there's a pretty good chance he did a parody music video for it. Katy Perry's Dark Horse or California Girls, Taylor Swift's I Knew You Were Trouble, Bad Blood, 22, Shake It Off. There's enough Taylor here to do a Bart's version of one of her albums. Many of his most popular parodies saw him in drag, playing the famous pop star, making some sex jokes, which led to a lot of recent comments being like, I really should not have been watching this when I was 8 years old. These parodies would usually not stray too far from the original meaning of the song, not in the way that Weird Al would do it, but instead they would inject some crudeness and irreverence that was commonplace on the internet at the time, and also rely on the fact that you were watching the music video. Which, while Weird Al had music videos, the fact that these were solely on YouTube kind of enhanced the visual aspect of the parody as well. As the barriers of content creation get knocked down more and more every year, we see popular viral parody songs popping out of nowhere pretty much all the time now. The 2018 Fortnite-themed remix of American Boy, the Estelle and Kanye West song, called Chug Jug With You, which then had a second life going viral on TikTok in 2021, is the first example that comes to mind for me. And I'm sure it does for you too, #1 victory royale. Well, this type of parody is analogous to that of its predecessors, the Weird Als and the Bart Bakers of the world. What we see in 2025 is something wholly new, and to some, completely indecipherable. I first encountered Jelly House when someone posted a clip of his song Riz Queen on Twitter. This is a sidebar, but My first reaction was that he looked so much like Mr. Beast that I thought this was a deepfake video of Mr. Beast, but he really just looks like that. Riz Queen takes the song Trap Queen by Fetty Wap and changes all the words to a completely random assortment of Brainrot terms and memes.
I'm like Stillwater plus Mango. Seen your goofy, are you a beta little bro? I just wanna chill, got knee surgery tomorrow.
That's 2 distinct memes and 2 Brainrot adjacent references jammed nonsensically into 4 bars of music. That's really just scratching the surface here. If you need more evidence, you can check out Rizzler, which does Closer by the Chainsmokers, Last Riz Day Night for Katy Perry's Last Friday Night, or his most recent hit, Riz Lines for Drake's Headlines. There's no rhyme or reason for why he picks a particular meme or Brainrot reference when he's putting them into the lyrics. Let's look at Riz Lines, for example. I be yelling out V-Bucks over everything, on my Sigma grind. Then she wanna ask, what is chicken jockey? Tell her I'm a Costco guy, booming 5 times. Where a Weird Al song, or honestly something as recent as Chug Jug With You, would have some sort of consistent concept or theme, topic, or narrative to tie the parody together, Jelly House just asks himself, how many Brainrot references can I fit into one song? This approach has brought him genuine success. Forget about his social media following where he has over 250,000 on Instagram and almost 350,000 on TikTok. He has almost 300,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. More than plenty of artists I've covered on here for their genuine work. The virality of it all even got him to Kai Cenat's stream, where he spit a verse that left Kai and Phantom absolutely speechless. You might think Jelly House is just a random guy who did a funny thing and went viral for it, but there's a lot more to this story. To start peeling the layers back, you just gotta go to the Jelly House YouTube channel, scroll past some classics like the Brainrot version of the 2016 XXL Cypher, which gave us excellent memes like
Jump hook on my wrist,
and go to the oldest video currently uploaded on there, a genuinely well-edited music video for a song called Stomp by an artist named Cassette. There are no lyrics about drinking Prime, Riz, Aura, Sigma, Skibbity. You see, Jelly House was a music video production company for years, and this is the last piece of evidence on the channel that shows you that. But some more research brings us to an interview from 2023 with a creator named Nick Metzger, who was getting advice from the Jelly House founder, Jake Heidecker, on how to run a successful music video company. In that interview, he had revealed that he had recently gone viral for this silly video he did showing an editing setup while driving a car, where he's editing the video in the car in front of him. He said this opportunity got him the chance to work with brands and do more social media marketing. Along the way, he clearly cracked the code and realized that this Brainrot music parody niche was the future. And looking at his success, I mean, you can't really argue with that. But then the question becomes, how did we get here as a society to the point where this is as popular and as funny as it is? It's parody despite following pretty much none of the rules of humor. Instead, just overloading your synapses with Brainrot references and memes. I actually have an idea of how we ended up here, because this is just like that time that In 1995, while studying at the Rhode Island School of Design, Seth MacFarlane had to create a film for his thesis. He came up with The Life of Larry, a story about a guy and his intellectual talking dog. Sound familiar? His professor thought it was so good, he sent it to someone at Hanna-Barbera, the legendary animation studio behind shows like Scooby-Doo, The Flintstones, and Yogi Bear. He was working on other cartoons for them, like Johnny Bravo, while he hacked away at his pride and joy, pitching it to networks who didn't quite see the vision. Finally, he got Fox to air the pilot for the newly renamed series Family Guy. Family Guy is, at first glance, a lot like the other really popular animated sitcoms of its time, namely The Simpsons and King of the Hill. There's a nuclear, white American family led by a boorish, beer-loving man. But where Family Guy diverges from most of its competition is its use of and reliance on cutaway gags. While there are still some jokes that might follow the general plot of a Family Guy episode, the funniest and most memorable moments on Family Guy are the ones that completely cut away from whatever is going on in the episode. One of the characters will say something along the lines of, "Oh, it's just like that time that I," and then bam, you're transported into a Bounty commercial. Or the main character, Peter, is getting surgery. Family Guy was not a complete flop when it first came out, but it also wasn't successful. It was, at first, canceled after its second season, although it ended up getting renewed a few months later for a third one. The show was also almost permanently canceled around that time because Seth MacFarlane, the creator, was supposed to be on one of the 9/11 flights, but he got too drunk and was too hungover and missed it by 15 minutes. Who says alcohol isn't good for you sometimes? The show was then brought back for season 3 and then canceled again after. Getting canceled once is usually a death sentence for a TV show. Coming back from getting canceled twice, I mean, that just doesn't happen. But Family Guy had heart. It was bought up by Cartoon Network, who started playing reruns on their late-night programming Adult Swim. Back then, there were also these things called DVDs, where you bought these little discs that had TV shows or movies on them, and then put them into this big clunky thing called the DVD player. and you could watch your favorites whenever you wanted. We had that in my house. My dad had the DVDs, and he and I watched the first 3 seasons of Family Guy so many times that it honestly scares me, because if I click on one of them, I might know the entire script from the beginning to the end. But we weren't alone in that experience. Thanks to word of mouth and the popularity of the reruns, the Family Guy Season 1 and 2 box set became the highest selling television DVD of 2003. Fox, like the ex that you just can't quit, came crawling back, renewed the show, and it's been on the air ever since, just wrapping up its 23rd season this past year. Although if you ask me, it lost its sauce somewhere along the way, but that's neither here nor there. And through different eras and different generations, the people have continued to yearn for the Family Guy. The show was the 3rd most streamed TV series across all platforms. Beyond its traditional consumption, the show seems to have a permanent seat in the game of musical chairs that is pop culture. It's found its way into memes across different stratifications of dankness, like the sweet man-made horrors beyond my comprehension, or the one where Peter's running from the plane, or the highbrow commentary of It Insists Upon Itself. Just a few weeks ago in Bushwick, the ground zero for aura farming and a lot of Gen Z IRL attention-grabbing memes, there was a couple cosplaying Peter and his wife Lois while displaying amounts of PDA that the Fox executives probably wouldn't let on TV. The rapper JD's Never Missin' gets accused of looking like Peter Griffin, so he did a freestyle on the Radar platform for a song called Peter Grippin'. But Family Guy is more than just a common shared cultural touchpoint. I'd argue that it's one of the best ways to understand how our shared sense of humor has evolved, if not downright one of the reasons that it did evolve. Seth MacFarlane used Family Guy as a vehicle to show off his encyclopedic knowledge of the previous 30 years of American pop culture. He was a freak for remembering the specifics of a 1-season and canceled TV series to do a cutaway gag about it for 5 seconds in the middle of a completely unrelated plot. But today, thanks to the internet, everyone has all of that knowledge at their fingertips. We all walk around with something that makes the Library of Alexandria look like the neglected library in your neighborhood high school. And as a result, I think referential humor has become more and more popular. Some of the things that people find funny today aren't always that clever or ironic or otherwise outwardly comedic. They're just unexpected references to something. Think about this meme of Cloud from Final Fantasy comforting Peter Griffin in the hospital. Why is this funny beyond the fact that you know who these two characters are, and it's funny that they're in the same place? And to be clear, I'm not saying that it's not funny. Like when I wrote it into the script, I laughed thinking about it, and I'm sure that as I edit this video, I'm gonna look at the picture when I go to drag it into Premiere, and it's gonna make me laugh again. Family Guy relied on this type of humor for years. One of their recurring gags, for example, is cutting to clips of an old country singer named Conway Twitty. At first, it's a random reference to what to me as a kid seemed like a pretty obscure country singer. Then it's a reference to itself when it happens again and again. It's not just humor that has become more and more referential over the past few years. Any trend that uses nostalgia as a vehicle is inherently referential. Think about musicians like Nine Vicious, whose album covers are always recreations of past album covers. Or big hit songs that rely on sampling older big hits like Shaboozie's A Bar Song, or Nicki Minaj's Anaconda, or Drake's Nice for What, or a ton of other examples. And then there are like so many awful EDM remixes of old songs. It's the type of stuff you hear at the gym when your AirPods fall out. I covered the current wave of nostalgia in music in a different video, and I can link that in the description. But music is just one angle. Think of all the TV shows that are just direct reboots, and then the ones that are like references to older things, like what Bel-Air is to the Fresh Prince, or what Riverdale is to the Archie comic series. Think of fashion cycles repeating themselves in an endless loop. It's with this that we should revisit the Jelly House videos. Stacks of references upon references to Brainrot memes that, while at first might look like a foreign language to the uninitiated, it's actually a lot more like the rest of the content that we consume than we might realize. Older parodies like Weird Al's Best Works would take one topic and explore it with as much depth as they could, based off the lyrics and the source material. Jelly House instead takes one deep breath and tries to name as many Brainrot references as possible, like he's going for a high score. This isn't meant to be an older is better, return with a V kind of take. It's just an observation that I have. In fact, I actually think that the Jelly House videos are hilarious, although that might be because, just like the house, my brain is jelly. But you gotta give the guy some credit for coming up with a way to connect with an audience in 2025. At a time when for a lot of people that's more difficult than ever. Those videos make me feel something, more than a lot of the genuine musicians who show up on my For You page probably would. Of course, for all the focus on Jelly House in this video, he isn't the only person making this type of content. I still remember a year or so ago when there was the we can go gyat for gyat, that we can go riz for riz meme, where these videos would parody the Central C and Lil Baby song Band for Band and change the lyric to these Brainrot lyrics, and then repeat the formula with different famous cartoon characters doing it. Honestly, the creator of those videos, the RizzyRot account, might be the true father of this space. There's so many different cartoon deepfakes on my For You page that dude is basically like Oppenheimer. Part of the humor of it, to me, is that artists promoting their music on social media is inherently a bit cringe for everyone involved, from the artists themselves to the audience who has to watch them. Life on social media as an artist is like being stuck in a permanent episode of Showtime at the Apollo, constantly promoting yourself to an audience that wants nothing more than to boo you, and even gets socially rewarded for it in the form of likes on their mean comments. In a way, these Brainrot parodies, whether they realize it or not, are playing on the absurdity of that situation, and are meta commentaries beyond the actual joke of the song. Instead of seeing some artist half-heartedly rap along to their song like there's a gun off camera trained at them to do it because that's what everybody on social media tells them they have to do to get famous, you see Rick and Morty rapping about going yacht for yacht, and you either laugh or you groan. But then you probably send it to your friend. Parody is always going to be a twisted reflection of what the world currently looks like. It's the Wario to the world's Mario. And so this Brainrot parody is a good way to understand how frazzled, fried, ridiculous, and untethered from the conventional attitudes of previous generations that our society is today. Every day, we open our phones for an unfathomably unhealthy amount of time to get bombarded with videos of children getting killed in senseless war, protests in the streets, plane crashes, misinformation, AI threatening everyone's jobs, rage bait, a slow and then suddenly fast descent into fascism, a new norm constantly being rewritten, balled up and thrown out, and then rewritten again the next day. Or as a great philosopher said before me, it seems today that all we see is violence in movies and sex on TV. So this Brainrot adds the comedic absurdity needed to counteract the actual absurdity of the real world, and gives it to a society that loves references and uses them as little life rafts to float back to the past so that they don't have to think about the present, or even worse, the future. Or to use an example, do you think Weird Al changing the lyrics of Sabrina Carpenter's Please 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 to Cheese 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 and making a song about pizza would be enough to crack a smile on anyone's face in 2025? And that's not Weird Al's fault. It's just where we are. Jelly House may be the relatively innocent brainchild of a guy who sat there and asked himself, how can I go viral in 2025? But he perhaps inadvertently provided an excellent example for how much society has changed in the last 20 years. Or maybe he's just a funny guy who says Riz and Skibbity.